Welcome to the Ukraine Crisis Media Center Press Center. Today we host the briefing of the representatives of Czech civil society organizations in the field of foreign and security policy, dedicated to the challenges and prospects of the future of Czech support for Ukraine. So today our speakers are Pavel Havlicek, Research Fellow at the Association for International Affairs, Kresina, co-founder and deputy director of the Koridor UA humanitarian organization, Kurnytska, Unity Hub coordinator in the Czech Republic, Jan Shia, Institute of International Studies, Faculty of Social Sciences, Charles University in Prague, Adam Hardilek, Czech historian and expert on Soviet labor camps for the Institute for the Studies of Totalitarian Regimes and Prague, and Jan Blazek, International Cooperation Coordinator for the Postbellum. Thank you very much for participation, and now I'd like to give the floor to Pavel Havlicek and ask him to tell us more about current mission of the delegation in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikita, and it's my great pleasure.
Microphone.
Thank you so much, Nikita, for introducing us and also giving us the opportunity on behalf of the Ukraine Crisis Media Center. It's always a great pleasure to cooperate with you, and it's our great pleasure indeed to be here with you. And actually, I will just say a few facts about what we are even doing here, what is the purpose, and why we felt the need to actually come to Kiev. We will be discussing this earlier, but just on Monday, actually, our president finally helped to inaugurate the new government officials and the newly established ministry positions, and that's why we also wanted to come and help maybe counterbalance some of the negative sentiments that the colleagues from Ukraine might have seen actually coming from Czechia. So that's one of the reasons. But above all, and this is the most important one, is that we wanted to restore the tradition of the Czech-Ukraine discussion forums. And just on Monday, yesterday, we actually concluded the fourth session of such a meeting. The second time we get it in Kiev, and 2 times before also in Prague. So on a yearly basis, these are changed locations. So for the last couple of years, we have been having this kind of civil society dialogue with the Ukraine colleagues. And thanks to our partners from Ukraine Prism, we actually managed to conduct another session on Monday. So that was actually how and why we arrived to Kiev. And it's my great pleasure that actually colleagues in the team joined us at a relatively short notice, but we managed to actually bring quite a substantial delegation to Kiev. There is more of us actually, some just today attending also Ukraine Central European Forum, which is a conference that is very dear to us, and we have been supporting since the beginning. So that's also yet another part of the program. And indeed, right now we are very happy that we can be here with you and also tell you more about what's going on actually in the Czech Republic, but also how the future of Czech-Ukraine support can look like. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And not to forget, I'd like to mention also that the moderator of today's discussion will be me, Mikita Kuzmenko, the analyst of the Hybrid Warfare Analytical Group of the Ukraine Crisis Media Center. So thank you very much. We can follow to the question. And my first question is, how do you expect the new Czech government to reshape Prague's foreign policy priorities? And where does support for Ukraine realistically fit within this new agenda?
So I might actually start, and then colleagues will actually come in here. I will maybe start a bit more generally, because for our think tank, the Association for International Affairs, that is actually something that we analyze and dedicate a lot of attention. And we see that the current government proposes quite a major reshuffles in the foreign policy and security policy of the country. From the traditional focus on promoting democracy, standing up for human rights, but also, of course, sticking to the value-driven foreign policy. We see that the proposal, also captured by the recently issued and pronounced declaration of the government, the program declaration, is going somewhere else. That's the general feeling. There are new priorities emerging, return to cooperation within the regional format, including most notably the Visegrad V4 cooperation. Very strong orientation on the United States. That's actually something that also has been very visible, but also, of course, reviewing some of the existing partnership and traditional priorities, not only for the outgoing government, but also for many, many years and decades before. So we are witnessing kind of early stage, at least, and I spoke about the time span that just yesterday, really, some of the ministers got inaugurated. So in that sense, we are really at the beginning of maybe a bigger earthquake that we might see happening to the Czech foreign policy. Thank you. Anna, would you like to continue?
Not this time.
This time? Maybe Jan?
Well, there is much uncertainty with respect to what will happen in the next days, weeks, months, perhaps years. But some things are already clear and some are under big questions. And this concerns also those programs and projects that directly affect Ukraine. Yes. So there are huge questions about whether the international or the Czech ammunition initiative will or will not continue. That is something that will remain to be seen. We have already heard from the designated Prime Minister, or current Prime Minister, Mr. Babiš, that there must be other solutions found to cover or guarantee the reparation loan that is being debated. Czechia is not contributed to the PURL program, so this is something that leaves us guess about the continuation of the support of Ukraine on the at least government to government level.
Okay, so I'm myself a historian, so I'm always very careful predicting the future. I try to interpret the past, and so also if it's of course open question, and it's more of a hope that those basic help like the Czech ammunition initiative won't be stopped, because it's something that's been working well, and I just hope this won't be abandoned.
Well, I'm here for Postbellum, and I'm very well situated between a historian and a representative of a humanitarian aid organization, Koridor. And we are also here not only to analyze the political situation, I would say, but also to stress and show that the civil society as such will remain as committed to the help of Ukraine or assistance to the defense of Ukraine as it was, and maybe even more than that, because you can see always this effect of a shift of policy being somehow also seen in a shift of public initiative. And we have seen a few days ago a huge donor actually increase, so from civil society. So this is another effect of the whole process.
Yeah, I also dare not predict the future, and so it must be clearly stated that the government was just inaugurated yesterday, right, or today, and only today have we had the pleasure to hear the first, let's say, announcement of our new foreign minister. Here I would just like to say that very often that which is said publicly is not done internally, and that as soon as a new politician or governmental representative assumes office, they are met with the reality that they were not aware before they had the responsibility, right? So they will find out that the questions that they were talking about during the election campaign are actually perhaps much more serious than they thought before, and that they will have to pay attention to them. We can see this in Hungary. We can also see this in Slovakia, where the, let's say, not very nice rhetoric towards Ukraine is not met with, very often not met with actual practical steps, for example, in terms of defense cooperation. So this is my, let's say, a little bit of hope that the responsibility and the weight of the office for the new government is going to weigh in. And as my colleague here said, of course, the civil society is always here to continue the initiatives that were not, let's say, subsidized by the government or by our ministries, and that were initiated by common citizens that wish to continue the support of Ukraine. At this point, I would say that it is the task of Ukrainian politicians and of politicians in the West that wish our support for Ukraine to continue to meet with our representatives, to meet the Prime Minister, to put down numbers on the table and show how practical help is also beneficial for our country and for the region as a whole.
Yeah, my actually work is kind of different from my colleagues here from the Czech delegation, and I'm working in the Czech Republic with Ukrainians, with the Ukrainian community. It's either with Ukrainian diaspora organization or with Ukrainians who are there locally. I would rather give here a bit of a honey taste to all the bad comment that we have heard from my colleagues, because from my definitely perspective, I do see that there are still a lot ongoing different projects to support Ukrainians, either locally in where they are abroad or internally in Ukraine. We do have, as international organization, a lot of projects that are aiming at Ukraine inside and outside. So we do see that there are still donors and there are other governments, not only in the Czech Republic, who are working and still supporting Ukraine on different levels. So in my personal opinion, I do see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Maybe finally, if I can just add two more points, actually, Nikita, thank you so much. We haven't quite touched upon the overall picture because for the country, and colleagues already mentioned that this is also including civil society, many other sectors. We will speak about that later. But of course, the overall political composition is also much more diverse, right? Here in Ukraine, the Czech president, Petr Pavel, is a very well-known figure. He is a person that will be trying to be the guarantor of continuity of the Czech foreign security policy. Despite all the mention that we also heard about from colleagues, he will definitely try to provide some level of continuity. And as a person who has been very closely familiar with NATO matters, as a chief of the military committee within the alliance, he is definitely also among the figures that will be insisting on a rather consistent approach towards security and military affairs, including the commitments that Czechia made most recently during the latest NATO summit in The Hague, meaning in the foreseeable future invest up to 5%, 3.5% into the direct military spending, and then 1.5% also for the overall picture, and also other affairs connected to that. So indirect military spending as well on infrastructure and so on. So that's one of the big questions, and our international partners, including from the United States, they often reminded of that. Recently introduced also new American, the US ambassador also reminded of that publicly. So that's very important, and Czechia, among other things, and this is already the second point, has committed to many other things, right? In the past, also major investment schemes, including investments and purchases of US military equipment, including F-35. So that's also yet another commitment that we already made, and we will need to stick to. So these are at least two other points that can be added to the discussion. So there are other actors that will make sure that there is some level of continuity. So what Anna referred to is also, of course, illustrated by the fact that there is and will be some level of continuity, hopefully, in our Czech foreign security policy, at least somehow, and we spoke about some of the negative features, mitigated by other actors that are also involved in this area. And the second point, that there is a whole series of existing engagements, commitments, but also deals that were made earlier, and that for which Czechia should be held accountable, not only by the international actors, as Risha mentioned, but also domestically, and also by its closest partners, including Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much for such a profound deep dive into the broader foreign and domestic landscape of the Czech policy towards Ukraine, but I'd like you to slightly specify. So my next question will be, looking ahead to 2025-2026, which concrete joint initiatives between Czech and Ukrainian actors, both governmental and non-governmental, could become the backbone of sustained Czech political, military and economic support for Ukraine?
Colleagues, Jan, would you like to start maybe, or? Okay, so we can. I might actually start from this side, and then we can again get your brains on this, colleagues. So I think that there is a number of those actually, and colleagues will be introducing them. I think from the area of specialization, from migration related to humanitarian aid and others. Of course, we spoke about the big question mark that is over all or most of the foreign and also security policy instruments. Some of those were mentioned, of course. Czechia has been one of the countries that has, in the past, invested rather massively in the democratization support, of course, and this is less significant financially in the humanitarian and development aid cooperation. So this is also something that needs to be watched. And when I spoke about holding the government and its key representatives, above all the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, accountable for this, that will be very relevant here. But I also wanted to speak about where we more engaged in the association that is related to the reconstruction efforts. And here, of course, there is something called the Program Ukraine, and this is a bilateral program of support that was once again confirmed and sanctioned by the government. So for the upcoming year, this will be 500 million, $20 million or euros for the next year, plus another 500 million, the same amount for guarantees that will be provided for future investments. This is primarily going into very concrete projects, including reconstruction of Ukraine hospitals. That is also part of the money that has been dedicated or provided as in a form of guarantee by the government to actually access much bigger pot of money, and this is coming from the European Commission and the Ukraine facility. So this is where some of the existing and big projects are actually going in this direction for the upcoming period of time. We can actually hope and also work on this staying the case in terms of especially involvement of the Czech companies, the private sector, but also civil society, and also colleagues sitting around the room and around the panel, that this will continue. Very concrete initiatives, very concrete projects that have been already sort of blessed by this government, the outgoing government, and that money dedicated to that. There is indeed a discussion about the budget for upcoming year, so that is still pending, but many of these things, and I mentioned, for example, initiatives related to the European Commission and the Ukraine facility, these are already money that has been pitched and promised to that. So I hope that this will indeed continue. We have something to build our cooperation from, and these are really bottom-up initiatives, including, for example, the Business Club Ukraine. This is an informal initiative driven by the Ministry of Industry and Trade, where actually we can rely that there is a substantial amount of companies as far as I remember, this might be up to 150, maybe more companies that are invested in Ukraine already. They will be further looking forward to for additional opportunities, additional ideas and potential for engagement, and hopefully this might be one of the big opportunities for the upcoming period of time. So economic cooperation, reconstruction related projects, but also very concrete Czech-Ukrainian even joint ventures and common endeavors in that realm. So I bet that this could be one of the things that we should definitely all watch.
So myself, I'm working in the International Center for Migration Policy Development. So that means that my area of work is actually related to rather migration, and that's why I'm gonna here talk more about how our organization or how Czech government is supporting the migration studies, or how they are influencing on Ukrainian migrants, or what type of projects we do have. And here I want to mention, for example, I'm being the coordinator of the Unity Hub in the Czech Republic, and this is one of the important initiative that is which is in the triangle between different governmental institutions. So the main donor of ours is still the Ministry of the Interior of the Czech Republic. We are working in the close cooperation with the Ministry of Social Policy, Family and Unity of Ukraine, and at the same time, we are like physically working in the Czech Republic as international independent organization supporting Ukrainians. So we do see that there are still a lot of discussions regarding like what are the future of Ukrainian migrants, what's gonna be in the nearest times, how the policies are gonna change. However, we do see that as long as it comes to the Ukrainian migration, those Ukrainians who are abroad right now is also the important part of the realm that's going to be used for future reconstruction of Ukraine. At the same time, we are talking here about the sharing knowledges that already are gained abroad. We are talking here about involving Ukrainian business in the Czech Republic to the reconstruction of Ukraine. For example, here we may talk about Ukrainian Chamber, which is working a lot and they're just like widening up. We can talk here about different areas where Ukrainians are work at currently can bring their own knowledge and expertise back. We do see that there are going to be a lot of people, there are going to be some people who will be happy to return back and to bring their expertise back to make Ukrainian richer. So I'm not that pessimistic about what is going on currently with the supporting of the project. We do see that the shortened of the resources is going all around the NGOs, especially as USAID has cut off their fundings. Nevertheless, a lot of different organizations who are supporting Ukrainian migrants abroad are still the major players in the field, and they are doing a good job to support Ukrainians. So this is my opportunity of it. Colleagues, anybody want to add anything?
So when I first came to Ukraine to work as a humanitarian worker in June 2022, my main task was basically to try to establish a network of different actors. They might be other humanitarians, there might be local volunteers, that's recipients on the front line, that's representatives of the cities and villages, and of course partners in Czech Republic, where I come from, or in other European countries. This was not only so that we could start and continue our work, but also what drew me for that was the awareness that, let's say, political winds can change, right? But your work needs to continue. And looking back at the 4 years that I've been involved in this kind of work, and we've worked with partners also like Postbellum sitting next to me, I must say that the networks have been established across all of Ukraine, actually across all of Europe. If I should speak about us, there is not a single project that would be done simply by our single organization. It is always a cooperation between Czechs, Ukrainians, and also some other European countries, be it with funding or with the actual work. I can provide an example of delivering fishing nets for the anti-drone corridors all over Ukraine. This is a project that's done between Ukrainians, Czechs, people from Netherlands, and from Great Britain. And this is where I believe the strength lies. The future of funding towards humanitarian and development activities is well, pretty much certain it is going to go down, and it has already gone down. Anna has already mentioned the cuts from USAID. We have heard from the biggest development donors like Germany, France, and Great Britain that much of those resources are going to go to security efforts, which in this situation is very much right. And civil society needs to react to that by connecting with other actors, such as the private sector. The private sector in this time is going to be absolutely crucial. I'm glad that Pavel already mentioned, for example, the Business Club Ukraine established in Prague. And I believe that more humanitarian organizations should join also private initiatives like this one, so that more funding towards life-saving activities could be secured.
Well, I do not have much to add, but I would like just to stress one thing, because when we speak about the assistance of Czech civil society, we are not speaking only about humanitarian activities and humanitarian aid, because as Postbellum and also other actors are assisting the defense of Ukraine, we actually do cooperate also with the Ukrainian army. So it's not focusing only and solely on the humanitarian aid, and this will definitely continue in the future as well. We have started in Postbellum with a group of people interested in history, but we were interested in history in order to learn from history and to be able to act in the present, and we hopefully do act as we can, and will continue so also in the future.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that dozens of smaller or larger NGO projects in Ukraine will continue. They will grow also in face of the uncertainty coming from our government. But speaking of the backbone of support, I think that's also what was discussed yesterday at the Czech-Ukraine Forum, could come from the military business, because as it was already mentioned, the most visible help from the Czech side is the coordination of the so-called Czech ammunition initiative, and it of course brings enormous amount of money to Czech traders with military equipment, and it's something that I think even the new government don't want to lose such huge income. So I expect the military business to be the backbone of support of Ukraine.
Just one last remark. I mean, there will be a basis for continued cooperation because of the mere fact that Czechia received hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian citizens after 2022. And they are there, and they are not gonna disappear. So this is a huge change, and it was a huge challenge also for the Czech society, because Czech society was homogeneous in terms of ethnicity. Now there was this huge influx of Ukrainians, almost 500,000, which is a lot, considering that the entire population of Czechia is somewhat below 11 million, and they were able to integrate well into the society. Most of them have a job, work there, and are contributing to the prosperity of the Czech Republic. So this is also yet another aspect that would be good to be present in the continued debate.
Thank you very much for such meaningful answers, especially for the underlying of the crucial role of civil society in the Czech-Ukrainian cooperation. But now I'd like to shift the scope of our discussion towards another crucial issue, and I'd like to ask you, how can national domestic political actors be encouraged or constrained to avoid exploiting the issue of support for Ukraine for short-term electoral gains?
Well, I've already started with this issue. We have a new government, and the rhetorics of them was to a significant part anti-Ukrainian, and openly and vividly exploiting the pro-Russian disinformation narratives, including the peace narrative. Let there be peace, no matter what the cost will be, first of all, for Ukraine. So there is such a risk, and it started basically before the new government was inaugurated. The new leadership of the parliament was inaugurated, and the new head symbolically took down the Ukrainian flag from the building of the Czech parliament to show that, like, this is Czechia, this is not Ukraine. So we must be prepared that this will be exploited in the political discourse, and that this will be to the detriment of both Ukraine and good neighborly relations between Czechia and Ukraine, to my deepest regret.
Yeah, I think that's where I see our role as NGOs, academia, to show our government not just what the Czech support of Ukraine brings to us, but also it's both ways how we are being enriched by the cooperation with Ukraine, not only concerning the defense, the knowledge of the brave Ukrainian army defending the country already for 4 years against much larger, richer enemy with all the new tools on the front line, etc. But also by opening the former KGB archives and studying together the past, confronting the Soviet and Russian narratives that are that were also on the basis of the false justification of the Russian attack on Ukraine, and that these lies are being spread and very often are accepted by people not just in our country but also all around the world and Europe.
Well, the Ukraine topic was used and misused in the campaign before the last elections. So definitely, the opposition was criticizing the government for being too pro-Ukrainian. What we can expect now is the opposite. The opposition criticizing the coming government for not to be enough pro-Ukrainian. So we can actually expect a change of the discourse in this way now, and also. In Central Europe, the greatest inspiration for this kind of using of this Ukrainian topic in politics is Hungary and is Viktor Orban. We know that in Hungary there's an election coming in spring last year, and very much will depend on the outcome of this election. Currently, Viktor Orban is actually not in a position of a favorite of this election.
In my personal opinion, I would rather here also refer to the civil society in general. I'm not going to talk here about the organizations who are locally in the Czech Republic. I'm going to talk about the regular people. Czechs do have the long history of fighting for their freedom. They have the history of fighting for their rights. And with the enrichment of the Ukrainians also in the Czech Republic, I would rather say that when the government is going to close their eyes to some important topics, people do know how to go out to the streets. So we do have a lot of organizations who are like helping to make the voice being heard louder. So I do see a lot of organizations who are supporting different protests, demonstrations, and the government would need to listen to it. Like they have no other choice rather than to listen to the nation that they are serving, because the governmentals are actually serving the country and serving the nation there. So in my personal opinion, it might be the tougher time than the regular ones, but there always is the chance to be heard.
Yes, thank you, Anna, for mentioning this. I actually wanted to expand on this a little bit because I fully subscribe to what has been mentioned so far. And I think here Czechia really has a bit different role. I know that there's a lot of maybe also fear or somehow doubts on the side of Ukraine about what might happen next in Czechia, but I think it's very important to see the difference in between Czechia and, say, countries like Hungary or Slovakia. In Czechia, what makes me a little more optimistic based on what we mentioned, the system of checks and balances is much more robust than in the neighboring countries, through having, for example, the upper chamber, the Czech Senate, that might be counterbalancing some of the negativity coming from the lower chamber that was just elected anew. I already mentioned, I referred to the office of the president that will again try to provide for this continuity and counterbalance some of this negativity. But most of all, and I think you're absolutely right, this will be the civil society holding the government accountable, and this will be our role also to really push back against potentially some of the negativity. And here I would like to add one more. So thus, I don't see Czechia falling for any kind of anti-Ukrainian alliance. No, Czechia will not, hopefully, but also based on our work, be there. First, Jan already mentioned about the upcoming Hungarian parliament elections. This might be potentially a game changer for the whole region, actually. If Viktor Orbán does not manage to secure his position further, then this might have some profound implications for regional development, but also policy towards Ukraine, also at the regional level. But indeed, there will be a strong pushback by everybody against any attempt to do things like that. And so here I would like to add another point, and I think this is also very important, and I understand that this might be difficult from Ukraine point of view, but I think it will be so important to differentiate the rhetoric and the fog from the real action. And here we will hear a lot of nasty words, we will hear a lot of and see a lot of nasty doings, such as when the recently introduced Speaker of the lower house, Tomio Okamura, put down the Ukraine flag from the house. Immediately, 5 others emerged, when put out of the windows by now opposition political parties. This will be the political part. There will be a lot of back and forth, and colleagues already referred to it. So there might be a lot of nasty rhetoric, nasty doings in terms of the sort of rhetoric or symbolical gestures sometimes, But I think another thing, and this Ukrainians should pay much more attention to, and this will be how, for example, the Czech-Ukrainian trade is looking like, right? Over the past years, this more than doubled when compared, for example, with the Czech trade with Russia. There is a huge increase, and colleagues already spoke about it, and I also tried my best to illustrate this, so that there is a very genuine positive agenda that is here to stay, and the government will not change it. They will not do anything against this because they themselves need this kind of economic growth. They try to profile on this, put the country as they like to say, in order to really remedy some of the past bad things, stuff like that. They speak like this, right? That they are going to provide for the local citizens. This will be their promised goals, and they can only achieve that when they cooperate with the private sector and so on. And the private sector, again, very, very genuine and in the right direction. They feel the opportunity and also the interest to work with Ukraine. So thus, this again might make me somehow more optimistic about all this, because we have a very genuine and solid basis on which we can build in our bilateral relations. It's not blah blah. It's not a rhetoric in Parliament and some stupid words that are being said. But this is really something that is genuine and will stay, no matter, in fact, who is in government. And that's actually very important, and this is a very good start for the next period of time in terms of our cooperation. To rely on what we can trust. This is here represented on the panel by civil society organizations. They are not going anywhere. Risha mentioned about it very well, I think. No matter what is the wind from where it is blowing, who is what type of political color, we need to continue working, and this is what here definitely we can commit to, that we will continue. We will not withdraw from this. We will not give up, for sure. And this, again, I think can be very well attributed to the Czech business sector and all the existing projects and investments that have already been made, and they will continue. So that's already a very solid basis that will provide some kind of feedback to the political class, no matter with what kind of messaging and what kind of stupid rhetoric they might come up with. So here, I think for Ukrainians, it's very important to watch the key players. And I would even say that this might not be in the future the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but the Prime Minister's office. It will be the Prime Minister who will actually determine the line on many of the crucial actions and policies within the EU, on our crucial partners. So he is to be watched, what he actually does, not maybe even what he himself says, but what actually he does, and what also other people that are within this ruling party camp, what they do in practical doings. So just to differentiate between some of the nasty things that we might see also in the future coming from the parliament.
Thank you very much. So you have mentioned the nasty narratives, propaganda, and disinformation, and these are the things that we, the Hybrid Warfare Analytical Group, are trying to cope with, debunking of such things. So from this point of view, I would like to ask you what practical steps can be taken to counter the anti-European and anti-Ukrainian disinformation in the region, especially when elements of such hostile narratives are echoed and amplified by the national governments themselves.
Jan, again, would you like to say?
Just a very brief kickoff of the latest election results are, to a certain extent, a result of the fact that Czech society failed the test of being resilient to these kind of hostile activities that Russia routinely does in order to influence the social and political situation in Czechia. So here I very much hope that there will be much closer contacts between the Czech and Ukrainian side, because I think that in this respect Czechia has much to learn from the Ukrainians, because you are facing the reality, you know where it can lead if it is not met with resistance, and you also know how to do offensive informations, which is something that is basically not in line with national legislation in Czechia, and most in Czechia basically lack the sense of urgency to take it seriously and frame this issue as an issue of national security. We are framing Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and all kinds of these activities as or through the lens of basically censorship and freedom of speech, which is complete nonsense, or that is badly distorted, to be more precise.
So me, as a historian, together with my colleagues from the Institute for the Study of Totalitarian Regimes, who are dealing with Ukrainian colleagues, archivists, historians, uncovering the Soviet past, mainly focused on the repressions against the Czech community in Soviet Ukraine, but also all around the Soviet Union, are trying to make these like some fundamentals that other people like journalists and policymakers can use as a source of some historical knowledge and countering the propaganda. We ourselves are, of course, engaged in like giving interviews, writing more like articles more open to the broader public, but at the same time we are mainly focused on building some kind of like archives, publishing historical books that can be source of this knowledge to people that can spread the information further.
Yeah, for me, the situation when you, as a Ukrainian, Nikita, are asking us, Czechs, what can be done about debunking disinformation is kind of strange, kind of funny. It should be actually the vice versa. It should be us Czechs humbly coming here to Ukraine, asking you what we can learn from you, because the expertise definitely is here, and this can be actually also a kind of an offer of Ukraine to Czech society now to help us in this situation. And I hope more and more Czechs will be coming to ask. I hope that more and more Czechs will be coming actually to see the situation here on ground as well. This is what we are focusing when we are bringing some cars, some ambulances here. There's always we do bring them ourselves, and when we bring them, we also try to bring some well-known public figures with us, someone on the verge of civil society and politics, some influencers, in order for them to see what the situation looks like in reality here, and in order to inform the public about it, and to win them to be more open to what Ukraine is saying. So this is one of the things that we can do in this moment.
Whilst I agree very much with my colleague that we should be learning these things from you, it is actually much easier to do it for you than for us, right? Because there is already war on your soil. There is martial law in place, and the government has the instruments to counter, let's say, the malign influence and cyber attack and propaganda, things like that. There is legislation in place, and there are agencies that are enforcing this legislation. I'm no expert on this matter in our own country, but let's say that as long as this is a political question, right? In the end, even though we have those laws and those agencies in place also, they do need political backing to take any, let's say, drastic steps towards countering misinformation or propaganda, be it by, for example, even banning some kind of outlets there that directly feed on information coming from the Kremlin. We know that these are in place in Czech Republic, but it's very difficult for agencies to counter them because the political backing is not there. But on the other hand, we have an experience with, let's say, a crisis. We remember when the investigation towards the Verbetice sabotage was revealed. We know that when there was, let's say, an urgency, the political representatives had to act, and they did need to, what's the word? Send the diplomats from Russian embassy back to Russia, right? To counter to counter espionage. So I'm afraid that until something like that happens in Czech Republic again, the political representation will not have the political capital to work with, because let's face it, their voters do not really want it, right? They have a mandate. And their voters did not call for countering Russian misinformation, even though we would like a government to do so very much. So, look, looking back at the election, I'm sorry to say that, but like the war was not the question of the election. The question was the economy. And this has been the case in other countries where more populist politicians took place. And we will still be looking at Germany and the rise of AfD. We will be looking at Great Britain and the rise of the Reform Party. These issues will be decided by economy and in Germany by migration. And you know, in this case, and it was the same with even with the previous election that Andrej Babiš won. I'm sorry, but like we people living in cities, let's say this liberal bubble, we might very well say, okay, well, you need to, you know, support the values, and you need to support the victim, and you can have all those thoughts about tactics and strategy and how to win the war and prevent aggression to our own country, and this is very much right. But in the end, it is the wallet that is going to decide this all over Europe. And I'm sorry, but in order to win the war with Russia, democracies need to deliver. And they do need to prove to the voters that this kind of regime is right for them, and that it will guarantee their prosperity, and that it will guarantee the prosperity of their children. And for many people living in the regions outside of cities, this is no longer the case. And they are not sure that this is going to be the case. So this question, in my opinion, is not going to be decided by any legislation on propaganda or disinformation, but it's going to be decided by you know, future political representatives who will need to tackle the economy, and not simply let's say these minor questions in compared to the big one.
Yeah, as I do agree with all the previous thoughts of my colleagues, but as we do have really vibrant delegation right here, I still will talk, and each of us has different experiences in different areas. I will talk from my perspective, and definitely I will need to emphasize on how that this misinformation and propaganda influences the moral of Ukrainian community at the same time abroad. So we do see that a lot of politicians are trying to manipulate different facts, but our Ukrainian community is also trying to work out the processes on how to voice out our needs, how to voice out how important we are there, to voice out the economical influence of Ukrainian migrants at the same time when the local governments may say that they are spending a lot on Ukrainian refugees. We are trying also to teach our own Ukrainians in the Czech Republic on how to distinguish where is the misinformation. We are working with them on different, like on computer literacy. We are teaching them the basics of a scene to understand, like how to distinguish is it a fake news or not. So it's not only the task on the governmental level, but I would say that it's also the task of the society itself to be prepared and to be ready to learn and how to work with that, because propaganda and disinformation is like facing us like on the everyday basis, and we need not only to ask our government to do that, but be at the same time like the ones who are working to fight that propaganda and disinformation by our own example. Like we need to inform more about what we are doing, how important, what is going on in the Czech Republic, to share the words of support, to tell how it is important, what is the democracy in the Czech Republic, what are the benefits of the Ukrainian temporary displaced people. This is something that organizations should do. This is something the civil society should do also at the same time. So each of us should be our own like saint researcher. Each of us should be a debunker, it's himself or herself. We do have some organizations who are doing it like on semi-professional, professional level. Like we do know, I believe a lot of us have heard about NAFO organization who are working like on the professional level, fighting like Russian trolls. And each of us can be that like NAFO fella. Even though no need to be the representative of this organization, you can do it yourself. And this is something that, in my personal perspective, should hit each of the person who is somehow in this area, either working, helping Ukraine, or being a Ukrainian.
Thank you so much for the question, and also I will just price our own cooperation on this with you and with Volodymyr from the Hybrid Warfare Analytical Group. Actually, there's been some great work done by you, and we were very happy in the past to be part of that. Actually, so more of common projects, I think, between Czech and Ukraine. This was mentioned, and we really need to invest in this. And I was very happy that we could join this election series to speak about what's actually going on in our countries, in Czechia, Romania, Poland, and elsewhere. So I'm very happy that you colleagues dedicate a lot of attention to this. Well, just to subscribe to what colleagues mentioned, actually, no good news. Unfortunately, the topic of disinformation has been largely politicized along the lines, as Jan mentioned very rightly. So we are not discussing about Russia interference, Russian propaganda and disinformation, but what we are instead focusing on is the freedom of speech, and if that piece of information is actually, too much or not, And here, this is a big problem because we are, again, sort of withdrawing and not really taking seriously what the other side, meaning the Russia world, is bringing to us. So here, we really need to reframe the debate. We really need to focus on this. But the upcoming government, it will not be them. They were the guys that were actually helping to politicize the debate, focusing on the freedom of speech, countering so-called censorship, in for example, efforts to undermine the strategic communication of the state, efforts to undermine crisis communication of the state, and so on and so forth. So they were the ones criticizing this, And also in my own work, what we deal with a lot is the digital regulation, implementation of the EU legislation, including including the Digital Services Act. And here, once again, it was the future government representatives and politicians that were actually undermining this. And Czechia is still one of the countries that have not delivered on this. One of very, very few. So here, no good news from the government level, but again, what we can speak more about is the role of other actors, including especially from the civil society. The state over the past years basically outsourced this domain to the civil society when it comes to non-formal education at schools, sort of helping to bring up a young generation in the need and in the possession of media literacy, information literacy. These were the civil society organizations to deliver this. Unfortunately, the state or the educational system not really providing what it should be, equipping young people with modern competencies and literacies that are needed, to even survive in this modern world. And Anna spoke about it at length, I think. So here, once again, there are a lot of projects, there are a lot of initiatives. Czech elves should be mentioned. Also, we were running the Czech version of Stop Fake initiatives, related to here in Ukraine. We need more of those. We need more of support towards that. And yet another example. Fact-checking organizations, Demagog, that has now expanded to Poland, Slovakia, and elsewhere. So there is a lot of good work on this, and Czechia is proving, generally speaking, more resilient actually than other countries of the region. Jan is very rightly pointing to some part of the society misguided very strongly by some of the populistic policies and also disinformation, including those from Russia. But generally speaking, Czechia is not doing that bad in that regard, and people are relatively aware, of Chinese propaganda, to some degree also Russia propaganda, So generally speaking, it's not all just black, but we really need to continue and intensify this, and the Czech-Ukraine cooperation can definitely contribute to this and make it better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, I have one more question which I'd like to address to Anna, but I think that all of you could answer and supplement if you want to. So you have many times mentioned the vast number of Ukrainians who have moved to Czech Republic, and so my question is, how can Czech civil society raise the awareness of the economic contribution that Ukrainian workers make to the Czech Republic?
Thank you for that question. It's really important. We do have seen that recently the Czech government already started, like the previous government that was going already were doing good work, like informing the Czech society on the influence, on the economic influence of Ukrainian migrants. They have posted the information on the amount of the money received by taxes from the Ukrainians who are working legally paying taxes, and actually it's like triple the amount that the Czech government have spent on them, and this is the enormous amount. And actually Ukrainians in the Czech Republic are really showing good example of the society of the nation who is integrating well, learning the language, working officially, and I can say that the Czech government already has done an amazing work, like supporting Ukrainians to be a part of this democratic community. And it's really visible how the previous government was trying to emphasize it, because the question of Ukraine was typically the question on each and every debate you could see on TV. And the question of migrants was really like used by the current government pretty often. The question of Ukrainian refugee, the question of the humanitarian aid that they are receiving, and so on, the amounts, and the amount of the humanitarian aid that it was received was also discussed, and there were a lot of disinformation that Ukrainians were receiving like thousands of euros of aid from the Czech Republic, and this also wasn't a good example how then other governmental representatives were debunking on the official level, like going out in public and saying on their social media that it's not true, that it is fake, this is not the official information, here is the law, and here is what really Ukrainians are receiving, and the amount is like significantly lower. So this is about like definitely how current government should speak up always, and the government used to speak up for us. The Ministry of the Interior were also informing on there was an information not only about the economical influence on Ukrainians, but there also was disinformation on the crime rate of Ukrainians in the Czech Republic, that Ukrainians are the population who is committing the majority of the crimes in the Czech Republic. But then, once again, it was debunked officially, showing off the real numbers and giving the official picture that is like followed by the statistics. In the you can go to statistical Úřad, you can go to the webs, and you can see the official information stated by the government, what is going on in the reality. We do understand that it would be really nice if also the different actors from the media side would support it, because in the media, I would say that we can see different opinions on that, and we can see different speculating on also the topic, because the topic is spoken about. That's why journalists are gonna do it. It would be really good if the non-governmental sector gonna promote this information a bit more. We need some more influencers. They are influencers and bloggers who are gonna promote and speak up the official information that is spread. So 100%, we do see the Czech government was doing it. We will see what the current government is gonna do. Nevertheless, we are here for that. The civil society organizations are here for that. Ukrainian diaspora organizations are here for that, and we are gonna try to do our work in that area. Thank you, colleagues. Anybody want to comment on that?
Thank you, and I just wanted to add one perspective, because despite all the good work that you mentioned was done by you, by other colleagues, and also the official places, still this is somehow a vulnerable place. Actually, this was evaluated by the CEDMO Hub, which is the Central European Digital Observatory that is seated in Prague at the Charles University, and they were, over some time, they were looking at what are the most trusted, misleading or openly false narratives, and actually out of top 5, 3 were aimed at the Ukraine refugee community. Those exact things that you mentioned, taking jobs away, getting additional benefits and things of that nature, and people actually very often tended to trust that. And I think we really need to focus on this, do all the things that Anna rightly mentioned, but also, of course, make use of the existing instruments. And once again, here we are standing at a crossroad when the government was openly criticizing some of the sort of teams, even based at the Office of the Czech Government or Ministry of Interior, doing great job on strategy communication, crisis communication. There was really some good job done, and we need more of that rather than less. So, and in that sense, we shouldn't just shoot ourselves in the leg. That is one. And here, I will also add one more thing, and I think it would be very well fitting in the previous segment of the discussion as well. We will really need to also try to reframe some of these debates. Colleagues spoke about the politicization of the topic of disinformation and information space, information warfare. But here there is much more happening, and I think it was you, Richard, who mentioned also the security situation related to Vrbětice, so the ammunition depots being blown up by the Russian secret services, GRU in that sense. There's much more happening, So it's not just information space, it's very physical, We see that in Czechia, we see that elsewhere. So to really refocus and reprioritize the fight against hybrid threats, in a sense, not only discussing about words, but also very concrete doings, And we see that more and more. Just last year in June, there was yet another attempt to sabotage the local transport in the capital city of Prague. A Colombian hired sort of sabotage person who tried to flare up a whole number of buses. Actually, it was supposed to cause a collapse of the local transport in the capital city. So here, it's very physical, and we definitely need to speak much more about that. The government and its program actually focus on some level of crisis management, crisis communication, also preparation for crisis situation. This would be very well fitting into this and support of crisis communication, for example, but also, of course, and this is what they traditionally paid much more attention to, and this is the cybercrime. Cybercrime, but also cyber sabotages. We saw a lot of that also years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic, when there were Russian actual hacking, some successful operations against Czech hospitals. This is exactly part of the agenda, and we really need to frame it in a bigger picture. We are not discussing only about information space, but about very physical attacks, and to refocus, reprioritize this agenda, maybe reframe it in a particular direction that will be maybe more fitting against this politicization of this freedom of speech type of discussion. There's much more to it, and nobody, including the future ministers and prime minister, can dispute anyhow that it is actually not okay if you allow Russian secret services to operate on your territory, to blow up whatever it is actually, ammunition depots, or even a bus depot in one part of the Prague, the city of Prague. So here, once again, this will be also our role to help to refocus the attention this way, maybe with a different lens, but definitely stick to what is so important. This is not only the information space, but also the broader agenda that we are seeing on everyday basis to really being of a national urgency. And if there is, and colleagues mentioned to that as well, mentioned this as well, if there is one agenda that the government should deliver on, this is national security. This is the basic function of the government, to provide security to its citizens. It's not only economic warfare, but it is above all this. So this will be definitely on the table, and we will need to help prioritize this and find a suitable angle to work on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would like all of you to summarize a bit on the topic of the Ukrainian-Czech relations, maybe after a year from this point, and to comment a bit on your personal and your organization mission and aspiration to strengthen the Czech-Ukrainian relations. Thank you.
I work with the university, and we already published a book on Russia's aggression against Ukraine, but it's been years ago. It covered only the years of 2014, 2015. So now we are working on continuation of it, in a second volume. Me, myself, and my colleagues, and this would be my contribution to raising awareness of the Russian threat, because Russia's aggression against Ukraine, I'm deeply convinced, is not an isolated event. This is a part of a broader pattern to destroy the current international rules-based order and to coerce the others to accept Russia's vision as, how they frame it, one of the pole of the multipolar order, where Russia will control, for the beginning, I don't know, half of Europe. So that's it, and I'm truly amazed by the bravery of the Ukrainian people. I do not think that the Czech would be able to resist the same way if something like this came to my homeland. And yes, Ukraine bought us time, and I'm not deeply convinced that we have used it to our best.
Yeah, our project is focused on investigating, studying the repression against Czechs, Czechoslovaks on Soviet territory. Of course, we also worked in Russia, in Russian archives. We worked in Ukraine during the Yanukovych era. It was pretty much the same situation back then. And but right after Euromaidan and the liberalization of Ukrainian archival policies, not just the state archives, but also SBU archives opened the door for us, and we are able, together with our Ukrainian partners, uncover the true past of the Soviet Union, and also we can see the continuity of the way Russia acts, the way it uses history and propaganda. So this is that's where I see our like little tiny part in the struggle for Ukrainian cause.
Well, yes, I fully agree what has been said, that we as Czechs are feeling and should be feeling great respect to what Ukraine is doing now, and gratitude because the fight is a fight for the whole of Europe and our country as well. And the future, I see the future between Czechs and Ukrainians mostly and mainly in people-to-people contacts, and this is what our organization Postbellum is actually also trying to foster. We have helped to establish a sister organization, Postbellum Ukraine, here in Ukraine, and we are looking forward to cooperating with them to study our joint history and shape our joint future by doing this.
Yeah, here I very much share the sentiment of Mr. Schier. I'm very much afraid that we have not used our time well, but at the same time, like, you can question if you invite, some EU officials or diplomats or politicians, you can question them on that. I'm here for civil society and for Koridor UA, a volunteer organization, first and foremost, right? So, like, we came into being on the Slovak-Ukrainian borders in spring of 2022, and this was no organized thing, right? It was thousands and thousands of people coming from Ukraine to Slovakia and further to Europe, but also hundreds and hundreds of people from Western Europe to the borders to pick those people up and help them. And this is how we came about. We collected humanitarian aid there on the borders, and those who stayed eventually decided that they will go to Ukraine and help there. And this still gives me hope. The fact that, well, in humanitarian terms, the first responders, which is the victims of the conflict, will be able to utilize the experience that Ukraine provided. Over those past 4 years, I think more than 200 volunteers came through Koridor UA. Right now, it's around like 45 active people. And whether they stayed in Ukraine for a week or a month or a year, they all got an experience that unfortunately will be useful, and that's an experience that is invaluable. They gained friendships, they gained personal relationships with the people that fight this war, that suffer in this war. And my only hope is that us as civil society organization will be able to utilize this in the future, and that we will not forget what Ukraine has done for us so far.
So me, as being the representative of the International Center for Migration Policy Development, as soon as the full-scale invasion started, we realized that we need to do what we can do the best, is supporting the migrants in the hosting country. And me physically located in Prague, we have decided to work out the plan on how to do that, realizing that tons of Ukrainians are coming, and they were coming without the international passports on them, without the certificates of birth, without mostly nothing, honestly, like a small bag with the personal belongings. So as we do cooperate with a lot of governmental institutions, at the same time the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs of Ukraine and their representatives, being the embassy and the consulate in the Czech Republic, we realized that we could be the bridge for them. We could be supporting working the consulates locally, and at the same time we can help the local Czech government by that, because they don't know how to work with Ukrainian papers. They have no idea on how to support from this side, and this is how this project started. This project started as just legal consultations, working, helping Ukrainians, and then currently it's widening up to us not only being the consultation center, but we're gonna serve as the hub for other diasporan organizations. We're gonna support them, we will teach them, and at the same time allowing them to use the space we have for their like organizational needs, event needs, and community events. We are also gonna plan some community events on our own, and our main mission is to be there for Ukrainians. We do speak their local language. We can be the people who can help them with the Ukrainian side abroad. For us, the main aim is to be useful, just to be useful, to support Ukrainian migrants wherever they are, and we are happy that we may continue doing it.
Thank you so much. So two parts of the question that you raised. So on Czech-Ukraine relations and what's for them, I think we really need to, we are, as I mentioned previously, at the crossroads, and we need to make sure that we translate some of it actually, what we have seen so far and the past doings of the government, that there's been a lot achieved, into some level of continuity. It might be taking a different shape and form, but definitely we will need to make sure that this Ukraine relations stay relevant. There is a lot that is serving as a base. There is also, in terms of the strategic documents, the most recent declaration signed over summer, again, outlining the strategic agenda for cooperation between Czechia and Ukraine. This needs to be delivered. This needs to stay relevant, and Ukraine as an important partner for Czechia. It might be different one, as I mentioned. We might be much more talking about economic opportunities and reconstruction than some of the past things. But still, colleagues mentioned that before, some issues such as the Czech ammunition initiative is so important to keep in place, and we need to make sure that this happens. So that's where we are strategically. Czechia needs to keep close relations with Ukraine. Unlike some of our neighbors, we don't have any historical grievances, any big disputes in our relations. We have a good starting position, and if we don't screw up, then I think we have a good potential to continue. Unlike for people like Robert Fico or Viktor Orbán, Andrej Babiš is not having any personal relations, any bad personal relations with Volodymyr Zelensky or anybody in Ukraine. There is good potential. The Prime Minister already promised that he will travel to Ukraine next year. So we need to keep an eye on this and look for positive agenda in our relations. It might be in the economic realm. It might be somewhere else. It might be the military-industrial complex. Let's see. But we need to stay relevant in here. And for us in AMO, I think there will be the two lines of our work that are relevant here. What we do in the think tank this is the reconstruction focus, and here we will continue engaging in Build Ukraine Be Better, the platform that now brings together more than 90 organizations across the wider European continent. Here we will stay working on this. We will talk to both Ukraine government, but also the EU institutions to really continue with the work that is crucial and that is being on everyday basis now discussed also in the big discussions about the future of Ukraine, but also about the end of the Russian aggression. This is part of that. It's a very significant part of that, and we need to make sure that this goes in the right direction. But that there is also the do tank part of our work, and here we will continue working with work in education sphere, where we have been engaged for more than 15 years. We will continue working with local and regional administrations in that regard, but also bringing the Czech experience to Ukraine and the Ukraine one to Czechia. So that is to continue. Let's see about how this further develops in the coming years, because this is also partially government-sponsored, some of this programming, but there is much more to it, and we will definitely make sure that at least as much as possible of this will continue in the years to come. Thank you.
So our discussion has come to its end. Thank you very much for all the efforts you have already done and continue to do for the strengthening and promoting the Ukraine-Czechia relations. It's really very valuable for us. As well as I'd like to thank you for the such insightful discussion we had here today, and I definitely hope that the ideas and initiatives that were discussed will transit into concrete joint projects and also will further strengthen the partnership between Czechia and Ukraine. So follow for our future events and keep in touch. Thank you. Goodbye.